Let's swing over to Florence Villeminot here with the International Press Review. Welcome, Flo. Let's start with Puerto Rico. Over a week after the devastating passage of Hurricane Maria, millions of Puerto Ricans are still waiting for aid.
It's a huge story in Puerto Rico. So let's start directly with the Puerto Rico press. I pulled out a cartoon actually from El Nuevo Dia, which depicts the situation quite well. You can see essentially rescue workers trying to hoist up a telephone pole. At the top of the pole there, you can see the flag of Puerto Rico. This is, of course, a reference to that very famous photo from 1945 of U.S. soldiers raising the flag on Iwo Jima. So apparently this is, they're depicting it as a war zone here in El Nuevo Dia. If we take a look at their editorial, they say it's urgent to fine-tune and expedite the response to this emergency, starting by distributing very basic things: fuel, electricity, food, drinking water. Now, this editorial says that basically what's needed is really good organization, an organization that follows a logical hierarchy and a clear chain of command. So apparently that's not really what's happening in the wake of Hurricane Maria. That, according to El Nuevo Dia, this kind of very well organized hierarchy is the only way to ensure that relief will be distributed at the right place and in good time.
And there's been a lot of criticism, Flo, of the rescue effort so far. Some Puerto Rican papers are trying to find some optimism, though.
There's a very interesting exactly. There is a touch of optimism here in El Vocero, which is another Puerto Rican paper. You can see this piece here saying that actually Maria offers us a unique opportunity. The devastating effects of Hurricane Maria give us a second chance. El Vocero says it's a second chance to do it right. This is a unique opportunity in our recent history, an opportunity to turn the page on Puerto Rico's old and broken system, its bankrupt past. This is a second chance to prove that we are not bad managers, that we are not corrupt people, and particularly in the way that authorities will use federal money that's coming from the United States, because, of course, remember, Puerto Rico is an unincorporated territory of the United States.
Now, the U.S. has drawn criticism for its slow response, and President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit the islands next week.
The White House says that its response has been adequate, but many U.S. papers beg to differ. If we take a look at the editorial here of the New York Times, you can see Puerto Rico deserves better. Only the federal government has the resources to repair the vast devastation, but according to the New York Times, it doesn't seem to be responding quickly enough, and it doesn't seem to be responding in the same way that the federal government responded to recent hurricanes in Texas and in Florida. And so the New York Times says, look, it needs the same response here in Puerto Rico.
Well, let's move on to another big story in the press. The papers are continuing to focus on the referendum in Iraq's northern Kurdish region earlier this week. Iraqi Kurds overwhelmingly voted in favor of independence. Flo.
Let's take a look at a cartoon. Once again, it's Friday, Cartoon Day. You can see here, this shows what's happened in the wake of that referendum. You can see here the president of the Kurdistan regional government, so Masoud Barzani, holding on preciously to this ballot box, trapped in a circle of hands here. What you can read in the top right-hand corner is that he's being suffocated. Suffocated by who? Well, regional countries and the central Iraqi government. Indeed, the central Iraqi government has rejected this referendum, as have regional countries who are worried that perhaps their own Kurdish minorities will get their own idea and want to hold their own referendum, perhaps create a Kurdish state. Now, if we take a look at another piece here in Al-Quds, which is a pan-Arab paper, he's pointing out how incredible it is that there is this coalition between countries like Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, countries that haven't historically gotten along that well. And this article points out that, well, it's nothing like a common enemy to bring old foes together.
Well, all foreign flights to and from the Iraqi Kurdish regional capital Erbil will be suspended starting today. That's on orders from Baghdad.
Well, tensions are high between Erbil and Baghdad, but this is an interesting piece in Asharq al-Awsat that's telling a little bit of a different story. It says that, according to their sources, the president of the region, so Barzani, has accepted an offer from Iraq's vice president to hold off on independence for 2 years and hold a dialogue between Baghdad and Erbil to see how they can work together in the best interest of the Iraqi people.
Well, from one referendum flow to another, lots of focus on Catalonia, which is pushing ahead with plans to hold a referendum on independence, despite Lots of opposition from Madrid.
Indeed. This is, of course, a story that we'll be following for you as it develops. Now, lots of focus on what's happening. So authorities in Madrid have ordered police in Catalonia to block polling stations and stop the vote from taking place. So these are Catalan police officers. It's unclear exactly what they'll do on election day. On top of that, you have Spain's paramilitary Guardia Civil that has beefed up its presence in Catalonia. So it's very unclear what's going to actually happen on election day. I pulled out this cartoon from El Periódico, which is a Catalan paper that's likening the situation to a standoff between Native Americans and the U.S. cavalry. If we take a closer look at this cartoon, you can see the caption there. The Indian chief is saying, well, we've asked that we've said that in the absence of violence, we can talk about everything. There is no violence here, and you can see that it looks like a colonel there pulling out his sword saying, well, we will bring the violence ourselves. So lots of, I guess you could say, worry as to what's going to happen on election day, if it happens.
Thank you very much, Florence Villeminot, for sharing the run of the international papers with us here on France 24. You're up to date. We'll be back after this very short break. Stay with us.